Hi there, Sebastien Richard here for Top Nuggets. Top Nuggets is the place for today's believers where we help you in the areas of faith, leadership, and personal growth. And today I wanted to talk to you about a story that we find in the book of John. It's at the end completely, where Jesus rose again. He's risen, and he meets with the apostles on the beach, and he's taking a walk with Peter. And if we remember, before our Lord got crucified, Peter denied him 3 times. So this is kind of like a reconnecting moment after this awkward experience. And so he's one-on-one with Peter, and the Lord takes the time to ask Peter 3 times to take care of his sheep. In other words, the other believers that would grow from the fledgling church at the time. So he's basically telling Peter, look, Peter, I'm depending on you to lead the flock, to be at the forefront and to feed these people that are starting to walk with me, to walk with God and to know me, to be in a relationship with me. So he reinstates him. So it's a magical moment because on the one hand, it's great for Peter, who was so grief-stricken. And even in the conversation, he's grief-stricken because the Lord takes the time to ask him 3 times, do you love me? Do you love me? And every single time, he's giving him an instruction pertaining to his followers, to take care of them. So he's telling Peter, you're going to be a leader. I'm depending on you. So Peter knows this is a big responsibility. And as he's walking with Jesus, he sees the Apostle John not too far. So Peter says to Jesus, he says, Lord, what about him? And in the context, it's interesting because we know that all throughout Jesus' ministry, there were 3 pillars who were always with him. Peter, James, and John. They were always going with the Lord. They were the closest, the disciples, the apostles who were the closest to Jesus. So John is also a pillar. So Peter's like saying to Jesus, look, I understand you're asking me to lead, but what about John? He's a leader too. He could help out a little bit. What about him? And then Jesus gave him the answer that I feel is epic and speaks to us today. He says, never mind him. You follow me. No matter what I require of him, even if I wish for him not to die until I come again, what is that to you? You follow me. And as believers today, we oftentimes are like Peter. Whatever the Lord asks of us, sometimes we're going to look around and want something else, or we're going to try to divert the attention, kind of like children do, right? We're going to be like, well, Lord, what about him? Or you blessed him in this. Why don't you bless me in this? Or you're asking me to do this, but what about him? He seems more gifted and more able than I am to do this. So why not him or her or whoever else than me? Kind of like Moses. Who am I that I should go, right? Who am I? I'm tongue-tied. I have this kind of problem, all these problems. Please ask someone else. So sometimes we have this copping out attitude, and other times we're just like, well, why don't you bless me like so-and-so? Why don't you give me what you gave so-and-so? So we're like children. I have kids. I have 3 kids. And oftentimes when I ask one to do something, he's going to be like, why are you asking me? Why aren't you asking her? Or she did that too. Or she made a mess of the living room too. Why are you asking me to pick up? Because I'm asking you. And sometimes I like telling them that story. Sometimes I use this as a learning moment, a teaching moment. And I take the time to tell my kid, the one who's saying, why me, why me? I'm like, well, it reminds me of a story of Jesus and Peter on the beach. And I tell them that story. All this to say, guys and gals, whatever the Lord requires of you, don't point fingers and don't compare yourself. We suffer from comparatitis. I don't know how to call it, but as believers, we often compare ourselves. We shouldn't. No matter what the Lord asks of you, you should take it to heart and be like, you know what? I will do it. Because you want to hear those words when you get to heaven. You want to hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant. And you won't hear those words if you compare yourself and ask the Lord every 2 seconds, why not him? Or why aren't you blessing me like so-and-so? Or why aren't you giving me what you gave so-and-so? Stop that. Let's just do what God requires of us and do it well. And that's how we're going to hear these words at the end when we see him in heaven. Well done, good and faithful servants. I hope this has helped. If it has, make sure you share this video, and you can also subscribe to our channel. Have a wonderful, blessed day. See you next time.